So, hello, my name is Robert Schraer. I'm in the class of 2017 at Da Vinci Design High School in 10th grade. For English, I'm in period 1-3. For history, I am in period 5-7. And today I will be presenting to you my fall POL. So we will begin with English 10 and our Fahrenheit 451 character analysis. I decided to choose to analyze Guy Montag, as I found him to be an inquisitive and intelligent fellow who wanted to freely think in a world where doing so is illegal. So to begin, we will have an excerpt from very early on in the book, as you can kind of see this mindset that he has even from, say, page 20, as we have here, or page 21. And the excerpt reads, "No one has time for anyone else. You're one of the few who put up with me. That's why I think it's so strange that you're a fireman. It just doesn't seem right for you somehow." He felt his body divide into a hotness and a coldness, a softness and a hardness, a trembling and a not trembling, the two halves grinding up against one another. So, over here, so in the beginning, this is Clarice basically asking him, or not asking him, but telling him that it's kind of a questionable thing that he chose this career as he doesn't seem fit for it. And he kind of splits into two and questions himself. As you can see, he has a hotness and a coldness, kind of like a rage and a sort of agreement with Clarice. A softness and a hardness. He's really like, oh, oops, that's not a scary one. Basically, like, he's very, he's very open to this idea, but he also wants to harden up and kind of say, I made the right decision. A trembling and a not trembling, kind of again with hotness and coldness. There's a trembling which is resembling like rage and anger, but then a not trembling, again an agreement. The two halves grinding up against one another, saying that he's really unsure on which side he wants to react with and which approach that he wants to take. Then on excerpt 2, we have him questioning his relationship with his wife Mildred. With the short excerpt, "I am in love." He tried to conjure up a face to fit with the words, but there was no face. I am. Now, this is in response to Clarice taking a dandelion and rubbing it under his chin, saying that if any yellow shows up, then he is in love, and none does. And later on, he uses the excuse, well, you used it all up on himself, like on yourself, trying to kind of show that he is in love, even though he can't even conjure up a face to show that he is. So again, it's kind of showing like his questioning, but this time it's questioning his relationship rather than his own stance on who he is as a person. And that is just on the page before. So as you can see, this kind of questioning, intelligent fellow who wants to free think is even being shown as early as page 20. So in excerpt 3, we have an excerpt from a little bit later in the book, page 88, and it says, "I don't want to change sides and be told what to do. There's no reason to change if I do that." And this is basically in response to trying to choose a side on whether to stay with the government and do what he's been doing all his life, or to finally go against and kind of rebel. So he doesn't want to change here if he is just going to be told what to do. If he's just going to be told what to do, he's going to be doing what he was doing before. So there's no point to change. He wants to be able to freely think and make his own decisions, not just do what someone is telling him to do. He wants to passionately believe in what he is doing. He doesn't want somebody else to do that. And again, that is shown in there is no reason to change. Like, he's essentially saying, if I can't be my own person, there's no reason to decide what side I'm going to be on. So that is it for English 10 and our character analysis. Now we'll be moving to world history and our essential skills thesis statement, which is that the Industrial Revolution is the sole reason why we are rapidly growing in a population as a species, possibly to a dangerous amount. So our first evidence is how it improved the yield of food crops and how it increased the safeness of these crops. So, employing crop rotation and irrigation technology, farmers improved crop yields for market products and animal feed. The availability of better feed combined with selective breeding produced healthier stock and made more meat available to the market. These agricultural advances substantially improved the British population's diet and increased life expectancy. So, one of the biggest things to come from the Industrial Revolution was also its agricultural sides, and later on, especially now in modern day, the kind of what would be the word? The kind of factory style adaptation of farming. So food is being heavily increased in amount, which means that there is more food to feed your family with. You can afford to have more kids because it's also becoming a bit cheaper as well, considering the amount of it. Supply and demand. And then also it's getting healthier than before. It's being easier to kind of keep it from getting diseased. So that's also increasing life expectancy because then you don't have people dying from illnesses like food poisoning. And down here we have our source from where I got that from, if you would like to type that up. Evidence 2, we have medicine, the medicine side of things. We start off with a quote, "One of the main killers of the industrial age was cholera. This deadly disease was waterborne and spread through filthy cities, not 50 cities, with ease, killing thousands. Typhoid also took a hold in some areas and made great use of the poor sewage provision to take hold of many areas." This kind of shows that there is starting to become a problem with how factories are disposing of their waste, and that it's starting to affect the people because all the filth in the cities and all the dirt that's accumulating from these places is starting to disease the people. So there needs to be a solution, there needs to be an answer, which during the 19th century medicine made great advances. Louis Pasteur from 1822 to 1895 proved that microscopic organisms cause disease. So they're starting to do research on how to solve these diseases, thus not only allowing the average citizen to pass on and live without having to deal with these diseases, it is also helping the factory owners in terms of they don't need to fix their disposal so much now that medicine is being administered to stop the diseases that the disposal is causing. In the early 19th century, many scientists believe in spontaneous generation, i.e. that some living things spontaneously grew from non-living matter. In a series of experiments between 1857 and 1863, Pasteur proved this was not so. Once doctors figure out what caused the disease, they made rapid headway in finding cures or prevention. So people are, once again, not only becoming healthier, but factory owners are also being able to be more lenient with how they dispose of things, knowing that science and medicine is catching up to help the people. And then in evidence 3, we have housing. During the Industrial Revolution, there needed to be tenements due to how many people needed jobs and how many people there were, considering, the medicine and food boost that we've seen in the past. So tenements were invented to kind of cram these people into small spaces, and in time evolved into flats or apartments that we see today. So we're going to go over kind of how flats and apartments evolved from these small, very ineffective tenements. So as you can see from the outside, this is this tenement over here from the industrial age, which I believe you showed in one of your presentations. It's kind of a dirty image. You see a lot of laundry just hanging out. There's a lot of people in the streets as well, and everything kind of looks a little bit run down. Nobody would really want to live in this in today's age. While over here you see a new apartment, everything seems to be a little bit more in order, everything a bit more clean. And then as you look at the interior of tenements and apartments, tenements back then were very crowded, they had very little space, and people weren't really close to the idea of how to organize a tenement, especially with how many people there were. So there's kind of beds everywhere. You have some pots over here for cooking. You have all the dishes right here. There's a dining table also in the background. There's very little space, but over time we kind of learned how to get more space out of little space through organization, through making sure that it would have enough bedrooms to support a family with enough privacy as well. And it kind of adapted into something a little bit like this, which I believe is a studio from the UK, where you can see there's a lot more space, there's a lot more dictated areas of like, whereas like right here you can see like this is like the living room, here's the entranceway. It's not just kind of crowded, as you can see over here. So we kind of adapted to learn how to make as much space possible out of the little space that we had through apartments, and now you can see apartments everywhere. There was also the invention of the toilet that came from the industrial age, as there was no way to properly dispose of waste from humans. It was often thrown over the edge, or you would have to go to an outhouse. So a problem needed to be solved in that was very unsanitary. So as you can see, here's some early toilets and wash basins or sinks. Right here for sale, the improved lavatory basin and the elastic valve closet. So you see that they're starting to make kind of improvements and be like, how can we have an outhouse in-house? And nowadays you have your modern toilet and sinks, which improve like the cleanliness of the environment around these tenements, or now apartments. And they don't have to, throw them over the balcony, and everything's a little bit more cleaner than we saw in that first picture with the old industrial age tenement. So, as a review, the Industrial Revolution caused population to rapidly increase in size through needed breakthroughs in food, medicine, and housing. And due to these 3 points and many others, such as you can see here, surgery, bathing, transportation, we were able to increase in population as a race due to the more ease of life that came along with the Industrial Revolution. It was a very hard patch right as it hit because we didn't know how to deal with it. We were used to open, villages with houses that just had enough size to suit our needs. And since factories were now crowding up villages because we needed to make, an economical benefit from them and get money, and then food came along and we needed to start producing enough food to please the people that were coming in. As you can see, like, ease of life. Compared to pre-industrial life, things have gotten easier, making the population able to boom. And if it were not for the pros and the cons that the Industrial Revolution gave, the population boom would have not happened. We wouldn't have not been at 7 billion people today because we wouldn't have been able to support that. So thank you for your attention. I am now ready to review my grammar trees and DBQs, and I'm ready for questioning.
So start with your grammar trees and DBQs first.
Okay.
Oh,
Would you like me to begin with a specific one?
whichever one.
I have a hard time fitting it in. Okay. So I started this DBQ by looking at the picture that was given to me and annotating it the best I could. As you can see here by the title, it's the political and social system in France, and seeing that there's the first estate, second estate, third estate, and the issue of taxes. I'm assuming that this is during the time before the French Revolution, shortly before, and there are France's estates here. First estate, second estate, and third estate. I labeled France's estates because I didn't read the title, so at first, so I used that information without the title to try to assume that since there was the use of the word estates, that this was France before the revolution. So here we have the first and second estate on top of kind of like this rock solid ground of taxes for them. And they're stress-free and relaxed compared to the third estate, which this is not a rock solid ground for them to stand on, but rather a rock that's suffocating and crushing them over here. He's kind of trapped under taxes, struggling to get free from them. And the second estate and first estate have their arms kind of like conjoined with each other, which is kind of like making an assumption, or which is kind of like implying that they're friends or allies, that they're working together. And as stated before, taxes are kind of like this heavy rock, this heavy slab of concrete that is like crushing the third estate and providing a solid ground for the first and second estate. So, that's going to be hard. Move that back for me. So, after that I looked at the question, what is the cartoonist saying about the relationship among the three estates in France? And I responded with, the cartoonist is implying that the first and second estate are crushing and are suffocating the third estate with taxes. The men labeled to be first and second estate stand comfortably on top of a rock of taxes, while the third estate is struggling to be free from the rock. This cartoon is trying to show how the third estate is trapped under a heavy amount of taxes. And then something that I didn't include in there is also showing that the first and second estate are kind of working together to keep themselves afloat on this steady rock of taxes, while the third estate is being crushed under them as a result.
Okay. What's your evidence?
My evidence is the second sentence where it starts to describe the picture, the second men, or the men labeled to be the first and second estate. So I'm taking details from this and using it as evidence, trying to describe what I've seen.
So your last sentence, where you say this cartoon is trying to show how the third estate is trapped under a heavy amount of taxes, would you agree that that sounds maybe a little bit repetitive?
It does, kind of, yes. I could have phrased it a little bit better, as I'm kind of like just stressing it a bit too much. I could have mentioned that, I could have like maybe added a bit of variety to it by mentioning what I added in that was left out. First and second estate being, allies together trying to keep afloat on top of the third estate's back.
Okay. Because you have the what it is, but then for your analysis you need to talk about why it matters. So in the bigger scope of things, kind of like how you said that they are trying to float on top of them, like what's another way you can say that for an analysis? Like if you were to adjust your analysis, how would you revise it?
I would explain why they're floating on them maybe. Kind of explain like they're floating on them because they need the money to support their luxurious lifestyles, which in turn is hurting the third estate and pushing them below the limits of poverty, where they can't even afford food or housing or shelter. They can't afford like basic needs. So I could have went in to explain it rather than just restate what I said in the first sentence. Easier to show this more. Alright, there. So here I was to observe this sentence and see A, if it needed any necessary commas and semicolons, and B, to diagram a grammar tree from the sentence. So as the sentence reads out, Ann Tyler wrote the book in our living room and gave my family a large, old, ugly vase. So I put Ann and Tyler both as nouns, making a noun phrase. I put wrote as a verb, making a verb phrase, which when combined together makes an independent clause. I put the as an adjective, book as a noun, in as a preposition, the book makes up a noun phrase. And then in as a preposition, our as an adjective, living as an adjective since it's describing the room, which is a noun, all making an adjective phrase, making a dependent clause since there's no real verb in there. And is conjunction, so it's just stringing the two together. Gave as a verb, making the verb phrase. And my as an adjective, family as a noun, a, large, old, ugly, all as adjectives, and then vase as a noun, making a noun phrase, which makes a dependent clause. I should have made that independent though, considering that a independent is made of a verb phrase and a noun phrase. And here I have a verb phrase and a noun phrase, so that was a mistake on my part. But together, all of that makes a sentence. And for my commas, I put a comma in between large and old and a comma in between old and ugly, considering that they are listing off like a series of adjectives. They need to be broken up with natural pauses, because saying large, old, ugly face would kind of be a little bit too rushed. You need to have a pause in between that to make it sound a little bit more sensible.
You're right. No, that's the dependent clause. With the natural subject.
Oh.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's fine the way it is. Let's look at the first half of that, where you have an independent clause and a dependent clause.
Okay.
So, in terms of writing, like the way you broke it down is fine, but in terms of writing, let's think about what an independent clause really is. So what's the wider scope of an independent clause?
It's a clause that can stand on its own as a sentence.
Good. So it's basically a sentence. If it's a complete sentence, it's an independent clause. We can make that assumption. So how can we fix that first part? And Tyler wrote the book in our living room. Everything before the conjunction.
I could have possibly included the book in this independent clause, because even though Ann Tyler wrote can kind of stand on its own as a sentence, you can ask, like, what did Ann Tyler do? She wrote. That's not really what's going on here. It's describing how she wrote the book that's in the living room. So it would need to be Ann Tyler wrote the book, so this would rather be included into the independent clause. So.
Yep. And then the rest of the Yep, and the rest of the independent clause. Good. That's all. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you. And I can stop recording this now?
Yes.
Okay.
We're gonna